Welcome. Today we're going to learn about the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor is the base of your pelvis from the tailbone at the back all the way through to the pubic bone at the front. You can rock forward and back and feel a little bit of the structures of the pelvic floor, particularly the sit bones. So we've got the left and right sit bones that we're sitting on under there. You can pop one hand and then the other hand under, and maybe if you rock side to side you'll feel a bony protrusion pressing into your hand, and that is the sit bone. That creates the outward points of the pelvic floor. So you can think of it as a diamond. Pubic bone at the front, tailbone at the back, and then these wider points of the diamond are the sit bones. Now the muscles that are moving come forward and back as well as going across. The central point that all of these, you can sort of think of the bony parts as attachment points for a muscle. The central point that they all meet at is in the middle, called the perineum. So a lot of the muscles will join and meet there. So let's look at the openings. At the front there is the urethra for both women and men. So that's the wee hole. For women, in the middle is the vagina, and at the back we have the anus, the anal sphincter. So each of those openings have their own muscles, and you can individually contract and release using conscious will. The perineum that I mentioned is like a gathering point of the muscles, and that can be lifted up as well. So you can think of the perineum as being at the base of the vagina, between vagina and anus, or for men you can think of the perineum as being between the anus and the scrotum. So that can create quite an upward lift. So why are we talking about the pelvic floor? Because the pelvic floor is the base of, or the grounding support for all of the organs of the abdomen. So for women, our womb sort of requires that support from underneath, all of our digestive organs. The pelvic floor is also the base of your core strength. So often people are talking about core strength, and we can think of that as being made up of the pelvic floor at the bottom, this lovely, not just a sling of muscles, but a whole network of muscles. The spine at the back, the abdominal muscles at the front, and then we've got the diaphragm at the top, which is the muscle that sits right underneath the lung. So this creates this kind of core support for when we pick things up, when we cough and sneeze, all of that sort of stuff. So very important. Now, in terms of coughing and sneezing, often, especially women, can lose continence of their urethra. So the wee can come out when they cough or sneeze, which is a kind of stress incontinence. The stress and the pressure of that cough or sneeze pressing down on the pelvic floor can release the muscles, and we can have an accident, small and major. And there's also another form of continence, which is urge incontinence, which is quite different. So health of the pelvic floor, tone of the pelvic floor is really important, and that can mean being able to release those muscles down so that the pelvic floor can be more soft, or it could mean firming those muscles. When I think of pelvic floor health, I think of it being both able to release and firm. So you can see I kind of use this image like a diaphragm being able to move up and down. And we've got one under our ribs, and we've also got one as the pelvic floor. So just have a little feel of your base again, just circling around, thinking tailbones at the back, sit bone, pubic bone, sit bone, circling around and seeing if you can feel down into each of your openings from the front, middle to back. Just have an idea in your mind that these are separate spaces, different muscles that activate them. But also having a sense that the pelvic floor is connected to the abdominal area, the transverse abdominis, the deep abdominal muscle, and also to your spine. You can come forward and back on the pelvis. That'll change the shape of your spine, and it will change how you feel in your pelvic floor as well. Forward and back give very different feelings. Lovely. Let's sit nice and well forward on our pelvic base. So that's a quick overview of the structure, the function of the pelvic floor, and you can use this information as we come into our yoga classes, particularly around our breath practices using Mula Bandha, which is a pelvic floor lift and seal of energy in. Uddiyana Bandha, which will be drawing navel to spine, lifting up through the pelvic area. And even Jalandhara Bandha, the neck seal, will give a lift right up through the pelvic floor and the lower abdominal area, simply because it's all connected. Right up from the back of the neck down the spine. I often like to think of the pelvic diaphragm as a basket, and there's all these ropes, these strings or ropes connecting it right up to the base of my skull or even crown of my head. And that as I change what's going on through the spine, I change how that basket is sitting or moving. So here's your introduction to the pelvic floor. Hope the images have been of some use, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you.